Good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is BRN AM for Friday, October 18th, 2019. Here are our top stories. Small businesses have the highest cybersecurity risks, and how can you protect your personal and financial data? October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and that means spending a little bit more time than usual on protecting your personal and financial data. Here with me to discuss how you can do that, who's at risk, and more, Kevin Urso. He's the president of Connected Technologies. Kevin, so great to have you on the program. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. So let's get right into it. I think I said at the beginning of the show that actually smaller businesses, and this is kind of counterintuitive, I think, for many people listening to the program, that actually smaller businesses are more at risk for cyber attacks. How do you see it?
Yeah, so that's definitely what we're seeing. So we see the threat actors are going after smaller organizations or organizations that they determine don't have the IT expertise to keep up with the daily needs that you need to do to stay secure.
So we're talking that there are billions. I mean, it's expected by one count to be $1 trillion being spent by large organizations. And when I say large organizations, I'm talking about corporations, not-for-profits, public sector like governments, municipalities, police, fire, federal government. But it seems like they've kind of quote unquote done their part, but now the most risky part are these smaller businesses, which, by the way, are the lifeblood of the American economy.
Correct. And what's happening too is those smaller organizations are typically stepping stones into larger organization as well. So they're a right target for the hacker.
Yeah. So what we're talking about hackers that are not only here in the U.S., but there are geopolitical hackers. There are hackers that are bad actors for some states that sponsor terrorism, states that are, other parts of the globe, right? There are people all over the country trying to get in. And Kevin, what are they looking for specifically?
So on a business level, there's a couple of different things that can happen. The easiest one is you've probably seen all the news about the ransomware that's going on. So they get into your network, they deploy a piece of software that basically locks all the files. And the only way you can get access to those files is if you pay them a fee. That's why they call it a ransomware. So that's an easy win for the hacker because They encrypt your files, you have to make a payment, and they make money. The other thing we're seeing is the information that they can pull out of your network is usually worth some money too. So they can sell that on the dark web for a certain amount of money.
Right. So when you say ransomware, so it's just like I would envision on, a TV show. Someone has a piece of information and they then say, Kevin at Connected Technologies, I have X, Y, and Z, and I'll sell it back to you for $10,000. How effective is that as an extortion tool? Because, I mean, they still have your information. Do they really get rid of it, or they just take the money, try to get what they can, and then sell it back on the dark web?
Yeah. So that's the risk. Is first of all, you're dealing with an organized crime, or like you said, nation state. So you can't trust them. We have seen is they do typically unencrypt when you pay them because they want to be able. They don't want to get a bad reputation that they don't unencrypt, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But they unencrypt, but that does not mean that they may not come back next week, next month. Or they may still be in your system, and now they're siphoning information out and selling that. So they may be hitting you twice without you even knowing about it.
Well, let's. A couple of questions I want to ask you. I've got 3 top questions that just came to mind.
Right.
The first is, if I'm a big organization and I've spent what I said earlier, $1 trillion, part of this collective spent $1 trillion, how do I ensure that anyone on my supply chain, because keep in mind, if you're a big company, you may have a cleaning crew. You may be outsourcing computer programming, or you may be outsourcing some human capital. how do I work with my team at this other organization, at these smaller businesses, to make things better and to plug up any gaps that I might have?
Yeah, that's the big challenge for these larger organizations now, and we're seeing that it's evolving. So a year or two ago, we would start to see a very basic questionnaire come through. Are you doing this? Are you doing backups? Are you doing it now? But those questionnaires are coming. They're very detailed. And in many cases, after the questionnaire is answered, you need to get on the line with the CISO or someone involved with that company who's familiar with the technology, and they dig even deeper into those to really prove that you're doing that, because it is such a huge risk to those large organizations.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're a record keeper, a 401k record keeper, as an example, you have millions of records, not just millions of participants, but millions and millions of records representing different transactions that would be available, and anyone trying to exploit a hole could potentially get that information and other important information. Kevin, in terms of, I want to get to prevention in a second, but in terms of the notification protocol. So let's just say, as an organization, I've been hacked. What should I do? I mean, obviously I don't go hide under the table. There are definitely steps that you need to follow to make the federal authorities aware. I'm assuming there are local authorities. I'm assuming there are partners. Can you just tick off a list of things that we should do as a professional organization?
Sure. So hopefully you start off by referencing your disaster recovery plan that you've already had set up, and that tells you exactly what to do in this scenario. Because when it happens, you're in emergency phase. But yeah, you need to contact. Hopefully you have a vendor or an internal IT department that can assess what the damage is. You want to contact your local FBI office. So we see a lot that companies will try to contact their local police, and the local police don't have the skills to handle this. So they need to go to the local FBI department. And then if you're bound by certain regulations, HIPAA, you may need to do additional notifications to the people that were breached, or to organizations that you partner with.
Right, HIPAA being the Health Act that requires certain disclosures, and every time you go to a doctor, you've got to sign a HIPAA waiver. So Kevin, those are really good points, but let's take it back further. I'm a small business. I literally am a small business. Mm-hmm. What can I and others who have small businesses do right now to protect ourselves from this threat, which is a sizable and adaptive threat?
Right. So for a small business, the number one thing you need to do is ensure you have solid backups. And with the backups, the devil's in the details with this. So we come across people all the time. We sit down, we talk to them and say, do you have a backup? And the answer is always yes. The next question we ask is, have you ever restored it? Have you ever tested it? And that's usually where things start to go a little awry. You need to be able to have a backup that you test on a regular basis, that you're sure that you can restore quickly. You need to know what that backup is backing up, and you need to get it out of your office. So we recommend a hybrid approach, a local backup combined with an offsite backup, which handles different types of events.
Yeah. Last question, Kevin. You referenced a disaster recovery plan, and I'm very familiar with this, having done a lot of due diligence on record keepers and asset managers over the years. But this is something that was typically a policy that said, if information was wiped out, you had a disaster like a storm, flooding, people couldn't get into the office for whatever reason, and business was disrupted, this would be the path forward in terms of resolving that issue potentially. Does that disaster recovery plan, it seems like you're indicating that now has to have a hacker response section, and it's got to be pretty detailed.
Definitely. Yeah, so it should really have your backup plan in there. It should have, like you mentioned before, notification of your different departments, maybe outside agencies. Usually the disaster recovery plan even has some policies in there. So what is your password policy? What is your internet use policy? all that, almost a policy book that tells what is your computer usage, what is your technology usage for the organization.
Yeah, it sounds like it's almost like the football the President of the United States carries around with the nuclear codes. I'm sure some of your clients probably sleep with that under the pillow. Kev, will you stick around? I want to go to commercial break and bring you back because I want to shift gears. Some of our audience are individuals, and I want to talk about things that they potentially could do. So stick around, and you stick around as well. Stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. Equifax, Yahoo, Marriott, Facebook. These are just some of the names that have reported cybersecurity and data breaches. But how can you protect yourself as a consumer with both your personal and your financial information? Well, Kevin Urso from Connect Technologies is still with us. Kev, thanks for sticking around.
Oh, thank you.
So you did a great job kind of laying out with the different risks, and we could spend hours and hours on organizational risks, right? But let's talk about, we've heard about Equifax, Marriott, Yahoo. There are too many to even name. Now, what can I do as an individual? I am not part of an organization per se, or this is not a work-related breach. This is a breach of my own information. What are some tips that we can do as individuals to protect ourselves?
I think the number one thing you should be doing is managing your passwords very well. So if you see a lot of these breaches, they are a breach of an account that maybe you had set up at one point, but a typical person uses that username and password over and over and over again across many different applications.
Yep.
Just because it's easy. So when that old, account gets put out there, the hacker's smart. They just try every account that they think you may have, and they get in. So using a password manager to make very secure passwords that you don't have to remember, all you have to remember is one strong password to get into the manager, goes a very long way into protecting your online presence.
Because many of us might have I have multiple email accounts. You may have multiple banking accounts. You may decide to sign up one day for a program, then forget about it completely. All that information is floating in Never Land, and it could be that you may not remember that password. You may have used a really easy password in order to remember it. And it sounds like to me, Kevin, that not only having a password manager, but maybe updating your passwords on a regular basis seems to be the proper protocol too.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something the manager will actually help you do. So a lot of them will alert you saying this password should be updated. This is a duplicate password. They'll help you with the ongoing maintenance of your password.
Kevin, you mentioned ransomware, and I can tell you on numerous occasions, and I'm sure many of our viewers have received emails that look legit, right? They look like they're from a Facebook or a banking institution. But how do I determine if they're friend or foe?
So first of all, you have to almost pause when you get an email. Take that second, breathe. Does this make sense? Even then, sometimes you may be getting an email from someone that is a friend, and their machine has been compromised.
Right.
So if you hover over, or if you not click on, but if you hover over the link, lots of times you'll see where it's taking you. And if that name is a strange address, you do not want to click on it. The other thing you can simply do is, if you get an email from your banking or your financial institution, don't use the link. Close that email, open up a browser, and go to the website of the company.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the other thing I've found helpful is to actually look at the URL of the sender.
Right.
Oftentimes, if you mouse over, to your point, you go up to the top of your email and it says from, and it says you're vending with your vendor's Chase Bank, and it says blah blah blah, all these crazy numbers. Generally, that is indicative that it may be bad information,
right.
a bad source.
Right. So what you're looking for in that scenario is, chase.com, not chase something else.com, because then it's a different website, basically.
Yeah. Kevin, a lot has been mentioned over the past year about, we hear about blockchain, cryptocurrency, and also artificial intelligence. Is artificial intelligence a threat potentially, or is it something that could actually help us in the fight against losing our personal private information?
No, I think it's something that can help. So we're seeing it being implemented into a lot of the monitoring tools that we use. So it can make decisions on the fly. So it's not signature-based rules anymore. In the past it was, we've seen this threat before, I know what this is, let me block it. Whereas the artificial intelligence can analyze that stuff on the fly and make a decision.
Yeah. And last but not least, when I bought my laptop, it came with virus scan for a period of time. What about virus scanning? What about firewalls? What about, services, and I'm not endorsing any of them, but like virtual VPN or LifeLock? Are these things that the average consumer, who are already spending lots of money, by the way, to pay for their own expenses, but these are things that become necessity potentially. How important are those services as well? Definitely.
Having a good antivirus tool, and honestly, built into Windows is a very good antivirus software. So that's a free one that users can use. I recommend to users to use a VPN software when they're browsing the web.
Mm-hmm.
That one, you do not want to use a free one. That one, you want to go out and buy a reputable VPN software. But those are all basic things that you can be doing. Something else that you could use is you maybe want to monitor the dark web for your information.
Right.
So this website called Have I Been Pwned, where basically you can go in there, you put your email in there, and it will tell you if your email pops up on the dark web and someone's been using it, you'll at least get an alert. And then you can go out and you change your passwords.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, obviously this looks to be a very dynamic field, and I know you're tracking it very diligently. Would love to have you back. Obviously, we don't have enough time to go into all the details, but since it's evolving and changing, sounds like we're going to have you back on a future date to talk about it more. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Anytime. Thank you.
Well, folks, that wraps up this episode and this week of BRN AM. Hope you found it helpful. Hey, have a financial topic of interest or someone that you think we should interview? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest news in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, and more, check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse. And don't forget, next week is National Retirement Security Awareness Week. We're going to have some special programming for you. So until tomorrow, or until next week, I should say, I'm Jeff Snyder. Keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
But if you're tired of the same